Hey, my name is Nadia of Nadia Reads and Writes, where I give you my hot takes on topics that I have no idea if people care about, but it's to do with reading and or writing. Today's topic is both. Not for me versus bad writing. Yes, they are two different things. One is subjective, one is objective. Let's get into it. I've seen this idea going around that if you do not like a book, that means it's not for you, and that is the only acceptable reason for anyone to dislike a book. Not for you seems to be a rallying cry to tell readers they can't criticize an author's work because you don't understand the story the author is telling. Yes, I've had this basically said to me. And I couldn't disagree more. I think that's complete and utter bullshit. Why is it important to critique authors' work? This is going to be a bigger video later. But the basic premise of why it's important to be able to critique an author's work is because we as authors will never improve. My first book is not as well written as my fourth and my fifth books. That's just empirical fact. It's not as well written. It's pretty good. The storyline, I think, is pretty solid, but it is not as well written. There are mistakes at the grammar and spelling and punctuation level. That's standard, but I'm going to say it's not as well written. The flow isn't quite as good. The themes aren't as well explored because I've grown as an artist and as a writer, because of the critiques I've been given along the way. When we're not allowed to critique because it might hurt their feelings or because it's simply strictly not for you, we are limiting the chances for that author to learn and grow. And I'm not saying being mean and bullying, because properly critiquing is actually a great chance for us as readers to grow too, because you're starting to delve into what do you like? Why do I like it? This really hit me hard. Why did it do that? Gosh, that was pretty awesome. I never thought of this thing that way, or holy fucking shitballs, I do not agree with this because X, Y, and Z. Because reading challenges you. It encourages you to take a look at what you believe and challenges your beliefs. But when you suddenly come across that whole brick wall of, well, it's just not for you, suddenly they're telling you to stop thinking, to stop feeling, and to stop critiquing. They're telling you to stop growing. And for what? For the feelings of somebody you don't know, who doesn't know you, that you have never met and will possibly never meet? You're saying, because telling an author your book is shit isn't going to do anything. The author doesn't know why. They can't fix it if they don't know why. And your feelings are valid on the matter, but if you can delve into why that book is shit, if you can explain it, there's a potential for growth on both sides, which I think is freaking amazing. So let's get into the difference between not for me and bad writing. Not for me is a matter of preference and taste. And it's entirely subjective and internal. What do I like? What do I enjoy? For example, a matter for me is why choose? I'm not a huge fan of why choose. And there are a variety of personal reasons why I'm not. Average writing is that most why choose are written for people who already know they like it. There is no real reasoning given for why someone might be interested, why it might be beneficial for them mentally or emotionally. It's just assumed. This is your fantasy, so I'm going to feed your fantasy. I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum, like enjoy. But good writing will fill the gap. Yeah, see what I did there? Good writing goes and takes you far enough into the characters' minds, lives, and lived experiences that then I can look at it and go, I get it. I get why it works for these characters. I get why they're interested in it. I get why this works for them. One example is Laura Lee. I know she does some straight, monogamous relationships, but she also has some why choose. And I went, I get it. I mean, I don't get it for me. I'm not going to fantasize about it, but I get it for that character. And it was a really good read. I really enjoyed her books because she's an excellent writer. Now, that is taking writing to like a whole new level. The bad writing I'm here to talk about today is completely different. This is not average writing of, I'm assuming that you already like this and I'm just going to write to that. No, 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 no. This is more on an objective level. We all went through high school English, right? We've read books before. I assume that if an author is writing books, they have read books. But I have seen so many that I'm not sure they have. And I'm not talking about bad writing as in an I dislike it in general, or I have a hard time understanding it. I'm not talking about that. Because we've got Jane Austen, right? She's a great example. I had to watch the TV show Pride and Prejudice before I could really get into reading the book because the language was completely different from what I was used to as a modern reader. But then once I did that, I was able to get into the rest of them. I can genuinely say I don't like Mansfield Park. That whole Fanny marrying her cousin Edward is just, ugh, no, I don't like that. But I would never say that Jane Austen is a bad writer. My gosh. Like, she gets her point across really well. She makes day-to-day life fun and interesting, and she is a good writer. The subject matter of that one is not for me, but I would never go and say that that is a bad book because there's something about it that I didn't personally like because of how well her writing is. There are a lot of books like that that like have problematic themes, but that's because they're inviting you to think, to consider your personal beliefs, to consider your stance on things, to see life from a different viewpoint. We may not like them. They're not always meant to be comfortable. They're not always meant to be fun. And we may not like that, feeling like that. But there is still a difference between that and bad writing. Bad writing takes even levels of forms, but I'm not going to talk about the lower level. I'm going to talk about the base level, the base. Grammar, punctuation, sentence structure, plot. How writing can mess up your characterization, oftentimes because you say one thing and then you show something else. So let's start delving into, I'm going to pull up a few examples of bad writing. I'm going to pull up one where the plot was all twisted up because I'm not sure the author read her own book. Sorry, I'm assuming she. I'm going to say they. You will also not, for full disclosure, you will not be hearing me name names or give you the names of books because it's not about the specific authors. It is, I'm using them for example purposes only. Okay? So let's dive into it. So we've got one here that has happened repeatedly in this book. It says, I released my grip on her. This author has done this multiple times. I released my body from his grip. Things like that. It's separating you. It's actually creating this additional layer between you and the moment. It's clunky. Grammatically, technically, but the problem with this is that it's basically you speaking about your body in the third person. I mean, it's very much a Mel Brooks, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves moment near the end when the sheriff of Rottingham is speaking to the mafia guys, and you have Luca going, I will take this with my hand and put it in my pocket. His hand is separate from him. He's describing what he's doing. Normally you would say, I released her, or I helped her stand. I helped her rise, because it was, I released my grip on her and helped her stand to her feet, is the full sentence. And it would just be like, I helped her up. You could add in a few little descriptive words in there if you wanted to kind of bring it into the moment. But I released her, I helped her up. That's literally all it needs. And that kind of mistake has happened multiple times throughout this particular book. All right, here's another instance of really clunky. I chuckled as I reached for her body wash and a loofah. I squeezed some of the body wash on the loofah. It's very clunky. Honestly, I'm pretty sure my first grade teacher would have corrected this if I had written this as a 6-year-old. Because it's like, I chuckled and reached for her loofah, squeezing some of her body wash. We don't even need all of that. I mean, it's about more about, as much about evoking emotion as telling people what's going on. But yeah, you could do something like, I grabbed her loofah and body wash and squeezed some out and started, lathering it up. Foamy suds dripped onto the water. I don't know. Like, I'm spitballing here. But the point is that it is very clunky. Very clunky. This particular author does not seem to know what to do with commas either. So, when you're talking to somebody and you say their name, like, I'm going to say Caleb. That's one of my brothers. Hey, Caleb, how was it today? It would be, hey, comma, Caleb, comma, how was it today? This author does at most half the number of commas, if not less. I can actually forgive that, however, because commas for me are also really tricky. But again, this is something that is throughout this entire freaking book. I'm going to go and read a little section here, but I'm going to remove names. I'm just going to call them by their first initials. So we've got, "Don't worry, doll. Me and your brother are just fine," Dee said after figuring out why my body had tensed up. His words completely eased my tension. "Yeah, Dee and I are good. Did you know the big softy hardly left your side since you've been in here?" There should be a question mark there. There isn't. "I mean, the guy clearly loves you. I can't hate him for that," Kay said as he looked down at me and smiled. "But if he hurts you, I will kick his ass." He looked towards Dee while hitting his fist into the palm of his hand. So, first off, we're missing some basic grammar. I don't know if I want to go and put this on the screen to show you or not. The entire thing is meant to give you, this guy is in love with you. We're actually really good. We're feeling better. But for me, it's clunky. This is, however, a really good example of just on the verge of between not for me and bad writing. If it was written a little bit better, I could totally enjoy it. If it flowed a bit better, if it was a bit smoother, if it had been edited a bit more. But it's falling just on the side of poorly written. But you see how close it can be? Now there's another pair of sentences in here that drive me nuts, and I have them memorized, unfortunately. And it was, "I laughed," or "he laughed a manly laugh." And then a few pages later we switch characters and it's, "I laughed a sexy laugh." So one of the first things is they've got the word laugh twice in the same sentence, and it feels unintentional. You might say, "I laughed sexily," but this is where we're starting to get into that characterization situation where you're drawing conclusions based on what the author writes. And some of these conclusions can be based on our own personal experiences, but some of them are going to be drawn based on what we've seen of the character so far. So in this instance, I believe it is a not quite billionaire romance, but pretty close to it, because the guy's not a billionaire, but pretty close to it. And he has for the last 10 years only done one night stands and has not cared if a woman got off ever. It actually explicitly states that in here. He has not cared if a woman has also reached enjoyment. So when I hear him say, "I laughed a sexy laugh," one, my ears immediately want to explode from hearing the word laugh twice in the same sentence. There is an instance where it is acceptable. I will point it out later. But two, I'm starting to draw conclusions about this character now. And I'm pretty sure these are conclusions that this author does not intend for me to draw, but I am drawing them based on what I've seen of his past behavior and by that statement. And by that statement, I'm drawing the conclusion that this guy is a douchebag. We have all run across men who don't care about a woman's enjoyment. We have all run across the stereotype. In here, he's meant to be the bad boy. It's meant to go and showcase how much he's changed on meeting this one perfect girl for him. But it comes across flat because of the writing. And that one little statement of, "I laughed a sexy laugh." The only people who think they laugh in a sexy way are douchebags. We might think that we're cute. We might think that we're adorable. A guy might be like, "Yeah, I've worked really hard on my body. Yeah, man, I'm jacked, I'm ripped, yeah." But to go and be like, "But I'm so sexy. I laughed a sexy laugh." You might think you're sexy, but you're going to sit there and go, "I laughed a sexy laugh?" Nah. The self-deprecating ones, the ones who learn, the ones who are worth getting to know are going to be like, "I laughed. Oh my gosh, why did I sound like such a douche? Oh, I'm such a goofy laugher. Fuck." But I laughed a sexy laugh. Whether or not it's sexy is entirely subjective. And the fact that this guy thinks he's laughing in a sexy manner, it also makes me question a little bit of his, which way he leans. We're not meant to doubt that. We're not meant to doubt that. So that's been a very interesting thing. Now, there are a few instances in this particular book that make it very much not for me. And a lot of it is to do with the language. One of the characters in here talks about grabbing women by the woohoo. Yeah. He needs his friend. He's telling his friend, "Oh, you need to get your D in some P and too small to be demonetized. But I don't know. At the same time, it seems like it's really rude to just say both words, like throw it out there on the internet. I don't know. I can say fuck a lot easier. But anyway, he goes and says, you know, a woman's kitty. Let's do that. And then he mentions a woman's kitty in front of his sister. I have 5 brothers of a variety of ages. There is a 16-year age gap between my oldest brother and my youngest brother. And not a single one of them, and we were literally raised in a barn, not a single one of them would ever, ever speak like that in front of me or my other sisters. Ever. And this is again meant to characterize him. Ooh, he's so bad. He's a bad boy. Look how much you're going to see how much he's going to change in the next book when he finally gets with his perfect girl. So that's why I'm classing it as a not for me, because I'm pretty sure there's women out there who think that that's really sexy and I don't. But I'm also wanting to put it under bad writing because there are other ways to get that point across. These guys sound like incels. They don't sound like bad boys who are super confident in who they are. They sound like the most insecure little incel I have ever heard of. And that's why I'm leaning it more towards bad writing, because I know what the author wants to get across, but in my opinion, so that's why it's a little bit on the line between the two, it's not following. It's not working. All right. I do have some other major character ones that are very unusual. I had a secondary book, and this one is going to go a little bit deeper into characterizations only because this author gave me a much better clue of who the characters are supposed to be. And we have a woman who grew up in a pretty normal way. She's psychic. I'm not sure why she's psychic. It actually has no pertinence anywhere within the story, but she's psychic. However, she does not assist the police. She has a journalist friend who occasionally asks her to look at various crime scenes, and she sees things she doesn't like. But it's always been distant. It's never been in her face. It's only through psychic visions. And we don't actually have a good view of what her psychic visions look like either, which is another problem within the story. It's always been told from the friend's point of view, and I'm kind of leaning towards the fact that I'm kind of leaning towards, I think the author did that because they weren't sure how to portray those psychic visions. Because that's what I see when people are unsure of their world building. Now, that might not be the case. The author might have thought that it would be far more interesting to see it from the friend's point of view. So, but I don't know what these psychic visions look like. I don't know how in-depth they are. I don't know. She talks like she's really grossed out and she's like mentally and emotionally disturbed to see them. Yet, this is a case where showing and telling are giving me two different things. Because she has always reacted very strongly to those visions. She's disturbed. She's like, oh my gosh, I need light, and I need fluffy, and I need my tea, and I need my good movie and my comfy clothes and a hot shower after seeing this, because this has been so emotionally difficult to witness. And yet within the book, she receives a box with a skull, with a knife driven through it, on a book. And her first reaction is, wow, those incisors look really familiar. Me, my mom, and my aunt are the only people I've ever met with incisors quite that shape. And just to check, she goes and messages her mom to make sure that everything's okay. Why wouldn't she think to call the police? Why, after reacting so violently to so many psychic visions, is she taking this so calmly? She grew up in suburbia. She had a very apple pie life, other than the occasional psychic vision, which, again, we don't actually know how much that entailed. So why would she react like that? It doesn't make any sense. And then a couple pages later, we have her thinking about her boyfriend. And she gives us this line: he can never know this side of me or that side of my family, or how they conduct business. Which implies then that her family is in some kind of mafioso type thing, and she knows it, and she has been on the at least outskirts of that world for most of her life. It would explain why she was so calm when she saw the skull. But then on the very next page, we see her thinking about her aunt. There is in the book, it says target name, bounty, location, date, and time. And then beneath them are columns with names and all of those things filled out. And she says, "What the hell did she do? Could my aunt possibly have been a ruthless assassin? I mean, it makes sense. The way she conducted herself, how much my mother refused to let me see her." So now we go right back to apple pie life. No mafia connections, nothing. So we've been shown one thing, we've been told another, and they're contradictory. That is a problem. But now we're going to get into plot. This is one of the authors that I don't think they read their book again. Before you ask, yes, I 100% spent 10 minutes going and making it. Okay, maybe 5 minutes making this. So this is a series of events that occurred within the book. We have girl leaves for work, leaves her job. This is after she finds the skull. Then we cut to Psycho 1 at a restaurant. Psycho 1 gets a call from Psycho 2 and meets up with him outside. They go to Psycho 2's hotel room where they spend the night talking. It's gross, but not in the way that you might expect. Then the two psychos go to this manor house where they were raised by girl's aunt, the one who has the incisors and girl wasn't sure what her aunt gets up to. That woman's house. Psycho 2 immediately jumps out of the car and runs inside. Then we cut to the girl wakes up in the manor and she's been kidnapped. And before you ask, I did not misspell that. The author wrote it that way multiple times in the girl's chapter. Then we go to Psycho 2 comes in and essays her. It was the most random and most unnecessary thing I think I have ever run across. But then we cut to Psycho 1's POV and it says, I quote, "We approached the manor." So we immediately jump back to both of them leaving, like both of them going inside the manor house together. Not only that, but the time is off. Between Psycho 2 running inside, Psycho 1 is following after at a leisurely pace, yes, but he's not slouching, which means Psycho 2 should realistically have only had a minute or two inside. And yet, in that minute or two, Psycho 2 has time to have a conversation with the girl and then proceeds to essay her before Psycho 1 makes it inside. It's a serious problem with the progression, but like I said, I don't think the author read through it. And I know this particular author has gone and put out a second edition of the book, fixing a lot of other problems that I have not bothered to mention because the author fixed them. I mean, it's still a very clunky book. One of the biggest problems in this book is that it does not utilize contractions. Every conversation is overly formal, overly stilted. When that girl went and messaged her mom after finding the skull, Mom says, "Yes, sweetie, everything's fine. I thought you had work today." And the girl replies in the text, "Yes, ma'am, I am at work. I just had an awful apprehension and wanted to clear up any doubt." At another point in this book, a character goes, "Hey, can you come here?" She mused. Calling somebody over is not a musing moment. A musing moment is when you sit there and you're thinking to yourself. You could be doing it out loud, you could be doing it in your head, but you're not like actively calling. It's more like, I wonder if she's here. That's a musing moment. And we have multiple times in the book where I think the author went and looked at a thesaurus and decided that everything is multifunctional. Like if it was suggested by a thesaurus, then that means it's good no matter where you place it. And that is not the case. And we've got one more problem that I want to address that doesn't necessarily fall into either bad writing or not for me. And I'll get into that in just a moment as soon as I find it again. So here are some miscellaneous moments that I'm putting under bad writing just because that way of thinking I think is very harmful. The girl, after she is essayed, has some interesting thoughts about how she should recover. And this is meant to portray her as being mentally and emotionally strong. But she has just been essayed. And she says, "My eyes are open now. I refuse to let this destroy who I am. I will not break. He died and I was the person responsible. I can take solace because, at the very least, he cannot do this to anyone else." End quote. Or she says, quote, "I refuse to wallow in self-pity. I just want to move forward and act like nothing ever happened. Pity is something I have no time to entertain." End quote. And on the next page, quote, Okay, yes, I know I am in denial, but there is no reason that I have to let it win and crush my very existence. I have too much to live for, and I will push past this and be stronger for it. After all, flesh heals and the power of a mind is limitless. If you take charge and don't let trauma own you like a rag doll, you can do anything you set your desires on. End quote. All right, so let's get into why I feel that this is very harmful. I have never gone through that specific trauma, but I have dealt with a lot of trauma in my life from different sources. And if, as a young person, a very sheltered young person, I was raised up in a very fundamentalist Christian household. And a lot of what I learned about the world in that day and age, I was homeschooled too. A lot of what I learned about the world in that day and age, I learned from books. Now, I know very few people these days are as sheltered as I was, and many of them are not going to have as much free reign to choose their books as I was given. But I can still see somebody younger who's got some lingering trauma reading that and going, that's all I have to do. I just have to push it away and not wallow in self-pity and it'll all be fine. And you know what that fucking does? It compounds it. There is just enough therapy speak in there to look kind of convincing if you don't know, if you've never been to therapy. It's just enough. The mind is limitless. It is powerful. You can, nothing can stop you if you set your mind to it. Yeah, sure. Within reason. Because when you're traumatized, you are injured. Your brain is hurt and you need to heal it. And you're not going to do that by shoving it away and pretending it didn't happen and just telling myself, I'm not going to wallow in self-pity. That's not self-pity. That is a reasonable amount of pain that you need to feel before you can let it go. Okay? That is not self-pity. Self-pity is, I didn't get to go to the play that I wanted to go to. I didn't get to go to that concert. And why is everything always so hard for me? That's self-pity. That is self-pity. Not, I was hurt by somebody else and now I need to heal. That is what she should have been going through. And that is what we did not see. We saw the speed run version that is going to potentially inform people. I have met adults, I have met people in their 40s who would look at that and go, wow, maybe, why can't I do that? I suck as a human being because I can't just say, well, I should be fine and my brain is limitless and I can do whatever I want. Why isn't it working for me? I've met adults who would be fucked up by that, not just young adults to teenagers. And that is its own special brand of somebody approaching a trauma that I don't think they have any experience in. There are much better books. If you want to read about somebody going through trauma and getting over it against a fun and exciting backdrop, there are much better books out there. Sherilyn Kenyon comes to mind because her characters take time. It takes them time to get better. It takes conversations. It takes understanding. It takes time. That is 100% denial, but that is the kind of denial that will make a trauma linger for decades if you don't do something, if you don't get proper help. And I know some people are going to be thinking I'm crazy for implying that people are going to read that and instead of going to therapy, but a lot of people can't afford therapy. A lot of people think therapy is useless. They might read that and go, you know what? Why can't I do that? And that is why that's problematic. And that is why I critique it. And I have one final comment about this entire topic, and then I think I will drop it permanent. Remember at the beginning how I said that critiques are an opportunity for authors to grow? This author said that they were open to hearing some critiques. And so I did reach out to them privately via DM, which you will not see here. And I was just asking questions. Well, what about this? Well, what about that? The author had an answer for everything. But these were answers that were never within the text itself. These were answers that were never even hinted at within the text. Maybe they made it into the second edition, but at no point were they like, oh, did I forget to do that? Oh man, I'm going to work on that. No, it was just, well, it's this and this and this and that and that. And so I made the suggestion that I got from another author that I have seen so many authors do, which was to print out the manuscript and go over it with a pen. And this person said that they could not afford that. For the size of that book, I would estimate it would cost about $10 to print that out. Now, you might say, well, not everybody has $10. One, if you don't have $10, it would be really fucking difficult to write and publish a book, especially if you want to actually have it word get out. Because promoting it, you're going to spend a lot of fucking money just figuring out how to do ads. And two, I looked at this author's bio. They have a backyard farm. They have little animals. They've got not made anything major, just chickens. If they have them running across their backyard, they don't even need to provide them that much feed. They're not purchasing eggs. Considering the price of eggs these days, they could not buy 24 eggs and be able to print that out and read it over. But the author, it was immediately like, oh, I just can't afford that. I just can't. I can't. So there is an author who is not interested in growing, is not interested in learning. They're just immediately going to that route. And two, the book that I read by them, that was their 6th book, and it was that atrocious. Which means that they've been talking to yes people along the way. They have taken in no feedback along that route. And that is where I think it is problematic. Like, if you're engaging in art, part of that engagement is growing and learning and developing. Being unwilling to look at yourself and your art objectively, that's not any way you're ever going to grow. You're never going to learn. And I say this as somebody who, my 5th book is in the works. I'm nearly done with it. And my current frame of thought around that is, holy shit, I don't even know if it's any good. Did it make sense? Did I put everything in? Is it gonna, did I give them enough information about these things? Will they understand the magic system? Did I put enough in about the magic system? Because they're still learning about them. I don't know if this is any good. And I'm not going to find out if it's any good until my beta readers see it. But my beta readers can't see it until I'm done with it. And I'm not done with it yet. But you might think that sounds a bit exhausting and a bit stressful. And it occasionally is, but it's not too bad. And the one thing that I really like about that kind of mindset is that I am constantly looking at, analyzing, and reassessing the work to see if I've included those little hints, those little clues, all that, everything. And then I'm going to use my beta readers to go and make sure that I've actually got it in there. My beta readers they do not hesitate to tell me when something is confusing, when something doesn't make sense, when something doesn't belong. And this author, their one lament was, well, I just can't get beta readers. The internet exists. You are on TikTok and Instagram. Start up a conversation with some people who like the same kinds of books as you write. Maybe go and do a Zoom call or a video chat of some kind. Meet them that way and then say, hey, would you beta read for me? It's not that hard. I've got 2 beta readers added onto my previous 3 that way. The only reason I'm not going for more is because I don't want to take in, I've got a nice pool right now. I've got a variety of types of readers. And at the beta stage, I don't need 50 people's opinions going and mucking it up. I personally like where I'm at with 5. If one ever drops, I'll find another one. So I'm done. Thank you so much for being here. I mean, you could have been anywhere on the internet and you chose to stick around through this. So if you did, do please leave me a comment, just as I know somebody actually watched this the whole way through. Let me know what your thoughts about bad writing and whether some of my examples of bad writing you think fall into subjective or objective. Is it bad writing or is it just not for me? Because I'm still sitting on the fence of it's a little bit of both. If it was better writing, it could have been for me, but it wasn't. So let me know what you think.